Welcome to Real Estate in the Tri-State, where we talk about all things buying, selling, and investing in the Dubuque area. Featuring experienced locals giving you their real estate insight. My name is Abby Rottler, and here is your host, my husband, Rob Rottler.
Welcome back to another episode of Real Estate in the Tri-State. Appreciate you guys listening, sharing, subscribing, commenting, all of the above. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. And today's guest is a Dubuquer who attended the University of Iowa after high school. And soon after, he earned some opportunities in rental property management and also the management of large deconstruction projects in the area. He has since built up an impressive real estate investment portfolio, which we will soon get into. He has started some businesses and partnerships that have found some great success, not only in the Chicago area, but also the tri-state area. Overall, an awesome energy guy, interesting as heck, and a real cool dude. Give it up for Kyle Fitzgerald.
Hi. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Kyle, I'm excited, man. Hey, can you just get it started? Tell us a bit about yourself so we can get to know you better.
No, I don't like to talk about myself. Anyone you ask would tell you that.
This is not the place for that, Kyle.
I don't know what to say, but I think that this is just a cool opportunity to chat with you. From my own perspective, I didn't finish the University of Iowa, so we'll get that straight off the bat. I finished at Kirkwood Community College in Iowa City because I wanted to have some degree of some sort. I thought that was important, but I didn't. My parents were screw-ups and they didn't do their taxes, and so the FAFSAs blew away, and and I don't mean that. My mom's lovely. No one would ever believe that she's a screw-up, but we didn't have our taxes together, and that's really unfortunate because I think about myself in that regard. Like, if you're a parent, if it like to get federal funding relies on your parents having their tax returns done, how many kids are getting screwed out of the funding? Yeah,
that's a really good point. I never even thought of it that way, and wow, I have not.
Because Iowa was not cheap, man.
No,
no. I have no student debt to this day, and I blew away my student debt. I had a local gal here, Amy Weber. She was awesome. She helped me with my finances, which is great because I needed that because I'm not a numbers guy, and she helped me get my student loans paid down immediately, which was awesome. So, kudos to Amy for helping me with that and a million other financial things in my early days. So, but yeah, University of Iowa, I spent 5 years there. Could have been a doctor, didn't get it done. But I did get right into real estate and doing some things, and that's me dying right now. I'm going to chug this. I'm a type 1 diabetic. That's an interesting thing to know. I got that dialed in when I was in Iowa City. So that was a big thing.
Yeah. Is that normal for it to come on in your college years?
Well, they call it adolescent or pre-diabetes or adolescent brittle diabetes. There's a lot of names for type 1, but it's such a thing. People think they know about diabetes and they're like, oh, you should do this. Shut up. Do you have diabetes? Do you have type 1 diabetes? Oh, you don't? Don't talk to me about it. Because I get super defensive about it because everyone's like, you should do this. I can eat a quart of Ben & Jerry's ice cream and be fine. I love Ben & Jerry's. Oh, American Dream. Oh, my God. Cookie. Don't even get me started. That's
so
my
good.
jam.
Speaking of, so we have some orange juice for the sugar intake. Let's also run down. We have coffee from Verena Street, Mississippi Grog. Shout out to Dubuque. Awesome coffee.
The best. Smooth.
We are both drinking a, what would you call it?
Like a
drink
seltzer?
Thingy?
This is the millionaires right now are selling this garbage,
Bubbler.
But the bubbler is good. It's got caffeine and it's tasty and it's fizzy and it's fantastic. But really what we should all be indulging in is good old water.
Cheers. And we also have water. Yeah. So we're staying, basically the moral of the story is we're staying hydrated.
Super hydrated. Yeah. I don't know what to say. I mean, I've had a really great experience both in Dubuque. My grounding has always come back to Dubuque. I grew up in Northeast Iowa, Lansing, Iowa, really sweet little river town, Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer style, childhood. But I've always found my way back to Dubuque. I am a huge fan of this town. I just think it's fantastic. In fact, sitting here in your studio, these are my old stomping grounds near Hempstead, great stuff, So Dubuque has always been a great community. It's done so much for me. It's created, huge opportunities for me as a kid, as an adolescent, as a young adult. So I've always tried to get away from it because, that's what we do. And I've realized that this is the place I want to be. So I've come back here, and Dubuque is just where I want to be. I love it. Yeah,
it's great. And you definitely bleed the passion for Dubuque. I can just feel it in your voice. We've talked about it, a few times before. And, at Dubuque REI meetup, we mentioned that a few times on the show. Just really want to do good things for the community, which is that's just phenomenal.
It's too easy to do here. Dubuque has opportunities. I don't think I do enough, but that's always been you're a big reader, and clearly we've been geeking out about books, but you give and you get. That's just kind of how it works. And this town has done a lot for myself, my family, and I've seen it do a lot for people. The people in this town, people on your podcast. You had Gronin on here. I loved that. Mm-hmm. It was fun to hear him, be sitting down and chatting for a long period of time without getting distracted, because he's a hard one to pin down. But I owe him and Mary, mostly Mary, because he's just the visionary. He and I can run around like squirrels, just in every direction. But, there's always, they say a successful man, and there's a strong woman in the background usually.
Oh, yeah.
Mary's just she was hard and fast, and she kept the line. She's. I always was scared of Mary because in the office because she was no BS.
Yeah.
I couldn't get away with stuff, and I was in the past a little shit.
Yeah.
So, but people like the Gronins they were a big part of my growing up and giving me huge opportunities, projects, etc. that I was able to then fail on their dime at times and succeed on their dime as well. So they helped me through a lot of stuff, and as a kid I also resented them. I was no, they're making all this. I'm the visionary. I had such a big I wanted to get out and do it myself, and instead, so I was I got to go out and do my own thing. And then of course we rolled back in and did stuff together, and it's been incredible since then. But that's just how growth works. You think you're a hot shot, and then you get out there and you're oh, okay, this is how the world is. I got to do all this crap myself now. I have insurance and all these things that need to be done, and employees, and the grass is greener always afterwards. But
right,
yeah, all that starts in Dubuque. I mean, for me, this has been home since I was 13 years old, and it's going to continue to be home for me always. I don't have any passion to go anywhere but here. I want to live in other countries and have other places in my future at some point. Dying still.
Do we need to get you more OJ?
I just drank plenty of orange juice. I'll pop back on.
It'll come in. Okay.
My blood sugar is right now 48. That's a low, but
is
it's
that
not
low? So does that make you feel
drunk? Yeah.
Does it really?
Yeah, a little boozy. Yeah, kind of a little lightheaded and.
And perfect for a podcast.
Perfect for a podcast. Yeah. But no, that's been something I've coped with my entire life is type 1 diabetes, and I've got it figured out. It works. I just didn't eat much today, so that was my problem when I got here.
Well, it's been a big day for you.
Big day.
Folks, if you're watching on video, you're seeing we are in suits. We have suit coats on. Yeah. Kyle went to Graham's. I've had this one for a while. It's a nice, it was cool. Today, I just woke up and I put a suit on. I don't ever wear a suit coat at the office. I mean, rarely. And, everyone at the office looking at me why you got a suit on? You got a closing? What's going on? Big day?
Because I can.
I was just I'm feeling it today. Yeah. And then Kyle shows up with the coat. And I wasn't even planning to wear it. I'm like, you know what? We got to both wear it.
I just, I had a closing today, and I also had a meeting this morning with the city. So I was doing meetings all day. And I just really like to dress up because it's been COVID. You can literally do business in your boxers most of the time. So I have been working out lately, and I know you can't tell, but I actually lost quite a bit of weight because I threw on a ton of pounds this winter. Just it was a dark and cold and gnarly winter, and I just was bringing up Ben and Jerry's, but all kinds of food and just eating and just huddling up. So I killed 15 pounds in the last 2 weeks and just been hitting the gym and working out and
Heck yeah.
feeling good. So I thought, I'm going to throw this on. And it button's great, and the belt's got a couple extra notches I can click into. So talk about a confidence booster.
Yeah.
And then closing on a property, so I wanted to look good at the bank. And
absolutely. Let's talk about that property.
Yeah, just bought a fourplex on Montrose Terrace, Fort Rittenhouse, 1846. It was built in Dubuque. Incredible place.
1846.
Yes.
Woo, that is the oldest we've talked about on the show.
Is it really? Yeah.
Yeah. That's really old. I mean, I look at a lot of property in Dubuque, just as a realtor, watching all the listings and everything like that. 1846, that's older than we see most of the time. I see quite a bit of 1850, if I'm really digging, but 46.
So the old abs. So the beauty of when you get into the old properties, and that's, I kind of alluded to working with the Groans like that. John, turned me on to old buildings and just restoration and things like that. But I also had it in my blood before that. My parents, my father was into restoring old homes. That's kind of where I learned how to do all the things I know how to do is from him, just being his, whooping boy, go do this, go do that.
Working with your dad. And where was it? Up in Lansing?
In Lansing, yeah. They bought an old steamboat captain's mansion, and converted it to a bed and breakfast. And my mom was the innkeeper, and my dad just continued to go paint houses and buy real estate and fix it up when he was doing really well. So it was like a great, childhood. I had 5 lawnmowers and 4 friends, and, we got her done. So it was cool. We got to spend time on the river and play, and it was I think I had like maxed out childhood. Just incredible. It was really great. Then, things changed, and my dad got ill, and we moved to Dubuque, and it was a totally different game here. But I learned a lot through that and got an appreciation for old properties and what can be done. So after seeing that, it kind of spurred in me the desire to, get into some real estate myself. And I have a lot of old properties. I don't think any of them I don't own anything that's been built after 1930.
Jeez.
Yeah, there's nothing that I've in my stock of.
You're comfortable in those old ones.
I love it. Yeah.
You just know your way around the things.
I mean, if I can't fix the place up, I can tear it down and sell the wood. So that's my business,
Wow,
So,
yeah. So 1846 on Grove Terrace. It's a fourplex.
Yeah.
What'd you like about it?
I didn't like it at all. A friend of mine, Mary, she helps me with all my rental properties and leasing and things. She's incredible. And she said, hey, I've got a property that I was going to take on. I'm going to pass on it, but I want to bring this to you. And it was off-market deal. One investor owned it. They were kind of passing on it. This is right behind the house that blew up on Loris. So behind where the explosion happened on Loris, you've got this place. And I just did like a Google drive-by from my office. I'm like,
is it green looking?
It's the back of it off of Montrose has like a stucco, like a tan or like a, I don't know. Like a tan stucco.
But it's like bluffy right there.
It's really bluffy. Yeah. So it's got an incredible view. And so this was called, I looked at it and I'm like, I don't know about that. I might pass. And she's like, just come check it out. So I went to check it out, and one of the units had a fire in it, not because of the explosion, but it also lost a ton of windows during the explosion. And there was a fire, like a kitchen fire, in one of the units, so that one was gutted out. So I went in, I checked it out, and I'm like, this is kind of cool. Like, this is a very unique property. So I decided to look a little further into it. Pardon me.
You're good.
So I decided to look into it, and I loved it. I was like, this thing's cool. So I called Gibson up at I called Loris College, because I've always, been able to tap into them for information on stuff. And they got back to me with some really great information about the whole history, old news articles, et cetera, about this property. And it's got a really interesting backstory. But it was built by Rufus Fort Rittenhouse. Yeah, Rufus Rittenhouse, I guess is the guy's name. He was an architect. His dad was an architect, and he was a builder, and early Dubuquer. And then they found this great plot. They called it a fort. I thought it was like an old army fort. I was telling people that, but it's not. It sounds cooler that way.
Yeah.
Because it looks like it has gun ports and stuff.
Dang.
I might put some gun ports in it just for the heck of it. But
wow.
No, it's just a cool building. It faces, south, and you can see the bridge and both bridges, and you can see all of downtown Dubuque, all the historic, notable buildings. I think it's just a really unique property. So I see the potential for what could be done to the bombed out unit, and now I have to go and do the work. But it has 3 apartments that are rented, up to snuff, good to go. So it's currently cash flowing as is. And I was able to get into it for a great deal. I mean, it's public record. You can look it up. I paid $127 for it, I think.
Wow.
For a 4-plex. It's an incredible deal. It's got challenges. I mean,
yeah.
I'm going to come across some $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 expenses here and there. So my bank and my relationship with my bank is awesome. And
that's crucial.
Yeah. And I won't lie about that. That's Chad Wagner at Premier. He's just a fantastic guy. And he's like, he won't let me get ahead of myself. He's like, all right, well, put a budget together. Show me what you're going to do. Like, he makes me do the work, which is necessary. And then we come up with a plan to do it, and we get everything lined up, and then we go after it. So it was too cool of a property. So I thought, I'm going to just take it on, make this my project for this spring. And once I have all 4 units rented, then I can decide kind of like a contingency plan for putting money away and eventually taking on that next unit to renovate, because they're not like wonderful units. And I always say that any property I own, I have to be willing to go move into it. Any one of them. I will not buy a place and rent it to someone if I wouldn't personally move into it tomorrow. So, and that's the case for everything I own right now. So
you fix them up real nice.
Yeah, I mean, as nice as I can. I don't have high standards either, so I'll live pretty much anywhere. I used to live in a warehouse in Chicago, so I'd shower in the bathroom with a hose. But I'm kind of joking. I'm joking around a little bit, but no, they're quite nice. Everything I own is in good shape, and I have great tenants. And the Dubuque REI site. So, it wasn't that. It was, I was perusing Facebook, and I saw a guy posted a screenshot on Voices of the Tri-States, or Voices of whatever, one of these, forums that are probably mostly negative people on online trolling. But
what's new?
It was a screenshot of like some rent properties on like a rent site, and my 4-plex on Rose Street was on the top left-hand side. And this guy writes like, rents are getting out of control in Dubuque. These people are crazy. And I looked at it, and I'm like, wait a second. That's like $750 for a 2-bedroom apartment. That's, a beautiful place, hardwood floors, gorgeous, nice place. Like, what is he talking about? Rents are out of control. And I looked next to it, and it's like a 2-bedroom house, 2-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom house. It was like $2,400. I was like, so wait, that looks good for me, right? Like, I'm good, right?
Yeah, you're good. Interesting. Yeah.
Do you know that? Like, do
I
you
didn't
feel like
see
rents
that.
are out of control, or?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they're appreciating. Yeah. So is, buying a house. I mean, I don't know. I know they've been going up quite a bit. And there's talk. I'm really active at the Dubuque REI meetups and stuff, and people will talk about how, eventually they might have to plateau at some point, like we're going to reach the top, like all these things, but I don't know. I
think I'm under renting. I mean, I really do. Like, I don't raise rents on people. That's
a good strategy though, right?
I've got a good friend she's amazing, and she's lived in my 4-plex for like, it's probably going on 7 years, and I had to raise her rent like at one point. I'm like, I
just can't.
I hate to do this. I'm like, Beth, I gotta gotta get $50 more a month. And
yeah.
It felt so awful. I felt like I was stabbing. I'm like, oh man. But
you're still probably below market.
It's still way under market rent. Yeah. But she's great, and like too great. Like, doesn't call me when things need to be fixed. I'm like, no, I will fix it. Like, you needed a new door for how long?
That's great. I do hear there's a lot of landlords who will take that approach. Like, we're going to keep this same. We're not going to raise the rent on our people because, we want long-term tenants, and long-term tenants are going to take better care of the place. And, we can raise the rent if we have a turnover, whatever. But, I mean, I think that's a I mean, that's not a bad way to go.
It's a good approach if the numbers still work. I mean, then you have tax increases and inflation. You still, as an investor, you still have to look at the numbers at the end of the day and say, hey, am I keeping track with what's going on that are outside of my control? Because I think it's a reality that prices will rise. What is that? Baz Luhrmann. He's got that everybody should wear a sunscreen.
I haven't seen that
song.
No, what is it?
Oh my God, you got to check it out. It's like I don't know. It's like from the '90s, and it's
everyone should wear sunscreen.
Everybody should wear. So there's one unalienable truth, and it's a great song. But it talks about prices will rise. It's one of the lines in there.
Yeah, they will. So cool. Yeah, I'm excited to hear how that fourplex goes for you. Seems like a pretty cool spot.
It's going to be great. I got a good team right now, and we're just going to go in there and just, blitz it out and do. I'll bring an architect in and just get a good. Yeah. Andrew McCready's awesome. 563 Design. He'd be a cool guy to talk to. Actually, he's big into historic. Him and his wife have done some great stuff in Maquoketa recently, and they've also done a lot of great stuff in Dubuque. Their home is incredible down there by the Boys Club. I would
imagine.
But he just. He's a friend, and he'll come in and, just walk through it with me and say, okay, well, here's what I would suggest. And I will take his opinion very seriously because he knows his stuff. You know? I used to do these kind of projects, and I just wing it. I'm like, oh, yeah, let's put a bathroom there. And how far is the toilet got to be out? I just, I didn't have the sense about me to have somebody who actually does that.
Yeah.
I worked with a lot of people in the past that were very frugal, and that mentality stuck with me. And I was like, oh yeah, we have to try to squeeze a nickel, out of a penny. It's like, what? No, let's pay the right people, get it done right. I don't mind exhausting some of the money on the proper people, which then makes everything just flow. I'm more I value autonomy in my life. I value just things to be done right.
Yeah.
So it's a fine line, but I want to get some as-built drawings and then just basically, develop a really cool space. I'm going to vault one of the ceilings, put new windows in. So I've got the money in the budget to do it. I'm going to do it right and then repeat that and get really awesome tenants in there. So.
There you go. So you'll do some of the work yourself and you'll hire out. Sounds like you'll hire out some of it. I mean, you talk about, I got a good team in place. You got a good chunk of contractors and resources that you go to for bigger things. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not a plumber. I'm not an electrician. I could plumb a house. It wouldn't be great, but it would work. Same with electrician. I used to work for Jermaine, and he taught me a ton of stuff, and I love his work. He does a great job. But a high school friend, Richard Beekler's got a RBX. They do a fantastic job too. I've used him, and I've used other electricians, other plumbers. Another high school friend, Andy Hansman, awesome plumber. He always takes care of me. He's Johnny on the spot, and he's competitive, and he just knows his stuff. And he doesn't beat around the bush. He's like, dude, I'm not doing that. This is how you're gonna do it, Kyle.
Yeah.
And I want to fight him sometimes because I'm like, no, I want it here, and he's like, okay, fine. You want it there? Hire somebody else. Okay, do it, please.
Okay, fine.
Gotcha.
That's good.
No, he's cool. He's hardcore. But I have good people that'll point me in the right direction and save me money. And
that's big.
They get the vision too, with these old houses, because a lot of contractors, the new guys coming out there, that think that they're woke and they can do work. Great, you can push some pecs together on a shark fitting or something. You're not a fucking plumber. You don't know how to you don't know how to get the right drill bit and drill through a top and bottom plate without disrupting the wall and shove a pipe through it. I mean, there's skill to working with these old houses, and how can you, especially with the climate we're in right now, materials are super expensive. So if you can avoid gutting a wall, but you still have to get it plumbed or whatever, you have to get creative solutions to get piping and gas lines and whatnot in. That's just one example, but there's when you have the right team, you're set up.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing. And you talk about some of these things that the contractors don't want to do. I've kind of learned that over the years, and I just recently did a big kind of renovation project, and I've just kind of learned just by doing that and being pretty hands-on through that with my brother who's a contractor. Just some things you could do, but they're just not practical. They're not financially feasible. So it's been helpful for me because I walk through some old buildings with some clients that are looking to buy, and I can just say that staircase is going to stay there. if you don't like that staircase there, you don't want this house.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to move the staircase,
You've been watching too much of that Chip and Joanna stuff or whatever, Like, oh, we could do this. Like, yeah, they're lined up with the right team that can really do the structural, and they make it look so easy on TV. These shows should be banned, actually.
They're a little misleading.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How many properties do you have again? I don't remember you.
I have a single family right now trying to get rented, and I partnered with a duplex on a duplex here on Romberg.
On Romberg, okay.
Yep,
cool.
just got it a month and a half ago.
I think that's my advice to everyone. If you're going to get into real estate, or if you want to buy a property and you're kind of single or married or whatever, try and find yourself a duplex. My buddy Dan and I were talking about this weekend. He's got a lot of rental properties in town. He's cool. He gets it. Are we already out of time?
No. No, we're good for another 25 minutes.
But he said, he made a comment that I thought was interesting. He's like, duplexes don't appreciate that much. They don't appreciate it at a massive rate. However, if you can get yourself into a duplex with a 30-year fixed mortgage, especially right now, you're living, next door, you have a common wall, et cetera, or however it's working, but you have somebody else paying your rent. You have to be like pulling your, pants up and getting the roof done and the plumbing and the fixes, but like that's just what you sign up for.
Yeah.
But if you have someone else paying for you to live there, you're pretty much living for free, depending on how your financial workup is. You then have something you can graduate out of to go get your eventual home. And then it's a cash cookie. Like, this thing makes money. Like, it's 2 units paying rent. I mean, my first property was a duplex, and that was the advice that, a local guy who I used to work for gave me. And it's like, get a duplex, man. You're in college.
It's a no-brainer.
Don't pay rent.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like, it's a no-brainer. I feel like I'm doing a disservice by not like going to the high schools and like propping up a little table and putting a little sign down that says, talk to me about how to get started on, in the right foot moving into your future. And it'll just be an entire conversation. People can sit down across from me. We'll talk about buying a duplex.
Don't you think though? Like, I think you and I are cut from a similar cloth, and I am ignorant to the fact that people think differently at times. I'm like,
yeah.
No, dude,
Same.
not everyone's like you, Kyle.
Same. I try
back.
I just think it's such a great idea. I'd probably push it on anyone. Buy a duplex, buy a duplex. But you're right. There's some people who probably shouldn't.
No,
it's like,
I don't know. It's a discipline to own property.
Yeah.
It definitely is. And it's something that has been inflicted on me where there have been times when I've been like, I'm selling everything, and I've bought houses, I've flipped houses, I've had a ton of great luck with just, I know real estate. I know how to work, and I know real estate enough. And I wanted to share this. It's so funny. I was thinking about coming on here and chatting with you, and I was like, one of the things I think I should share is I have no clue how to do numbers or math. Like, I get it.
I was going to get into this, yes.
Okay, sorry. I mean, if I'm jumping around on you, you can stop me.
This is great.
I get it. Like, I get the math, but I could give two craps about it. I'm like, all right, fine. Like, is it making 10 points, 11, 12, 13? I don't care. Like, if I walk in, I saw that that fourplex. Of course, I did the numbers, but like, I just was like, okay, how much are the rents? What are the taxes? Like, it's very simple numbers, and you just like, then there's like rules, bigger pockets. Like, but there are people I feel that are like so hung up on like super hyper evaluating a deal. And when I saw that, and I was like, wait, $126,000 or whatever I paid for it, I don't know. Like, I have a loan for $250,000, so I have a $250,000 loan on that project. Why? Because it needs a ton of work. And I'm not going to go into that without having the back of that. And, that's had nothing. I wasn't going to buy it with like that idea. My banker's like, let's get you set up with exactly what you need. If you're going to do this, we want you to have all the tools you need, because we're going to be holding the bag if something hits the fan, and we want you to do it right. So that's, again, about having a team. And I had to do all the math. I had to do the bidding. Like, don't get me wrong. I know how to do math, but there's a lot of tools out there that do it for you too now.
Yeah.
I've never really been like the guy to just like hyper evaluate deals. And that's probably a blessing and a curse. Like, it's got me into stuff, but it's also probably hindered me at times, I just think I have a really good knack for understanding like when something is going to work,
Yeah. And you don't ever worry about analysis paralysis. Paralysis by analysis, or however you want to say it. Like, I think that's a big problem for quite a few people. Like, you look at the numbers and it's just like, it's just not going to work. And maybe they're crunching the numbers and the entire time they're crunching the numbers at worst case scenario. And that worst case scenario has a 2% chance of ever happening. But, what probably will happen is that it'll cash flow just nicely. It'll appreciate just nicely, and it'll be a good rental for you. If it feels like that, and best case scenario, it's a freaking killer, and you rake in a bunch of cash, and it ends up being a good deal. So
it's like numbers sell people though too. Like people obviously, if you know marketing, like they buy on emotion. Like I can sell you the experience of like, just think of yourself. You're laying out on the boat. You're in the middle. You're anchored out in the gorgeous lake. The lady's with you. She hands you, a fresh cocktail. Blah blah blah. Want to buy a boat? Sure, I want to buy a boat.
Yeah.
Because you want that experience. But then it's like, you need to drain the lower unit fluid, and you need to like put it on the trailer, and like here's how you tie it up, and qualified captain photograph later. You're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of, the other thing I do is deconstruction. So like that's my forte. Like that's my like secret weapon. It's like I can go into buildings and take them down. I'm not a demolition guy, but I can get into excavators and like smash shit, and it's fun.
Hell yeah.
I love that. There's nothing more cool than like jumping in a bulldozer and just plowing stuff over. But that's not what I'm about. I'm about saving stuff, and that experience I got through Gronin. Like that John put a lot of faith in me in one of the first projects at the 5 Points. He sold a building to a couple lots to the Walgreens that went in there, and there was this really cool building that had this like turret that like overhung the street corner, and it was already kind of gutted out and ready to go. But he brought in a team of all of his guys, all of his carpenters and masons and everyone else. And everyone's like, you're nuts, John. Like, he's like, I want to save all this stuff. There's good brick. There's good beams. And there was some of the best wood you'd ever see. Like, and I'm in there just salivating. And he brought in a consultant from Chicago who years later became one of my partners in business. And we killed it in Chicago together. Ken Ortiz, awesome guy. And Ken and I connected. And Ken, this is back in the flip phone days, like Ken would... we both said Ken gave me the confidence. He's like, Kyle, you can do this. I'll walk you through it. And so John hired me to do it. And I think I was getting paid I won't say, but not much per hour to do this. Mm-hmm. But it was a huge game changer for me, to pull it off. And John just poured all of his resources out. He's like, you direct these resources, which was really hard for people who were twice my age to be taking direction from me. And it was really hard for me to give direction to people that way. Because there's a respect, and there's a whole it's just kind of threw the whole chain of command out of whack.
Yeah.
But long and the short, I would text Ken in Chicago a picture of what I'm looking at, and he's like, oh yeah, so you want to take those bricks down from left to right at a 45-degree angle, and then just progressively work towards the front. When you get to that turret, you're going to want to do this and that. And then I took a spin on it, and I called the crane company across the street, and Rod no longer, I think he sold it, A1 Crane, but he's just an incredible guy, great friend. He'll show up anytime to do whatever you need. And he plucked the whole turret. We closed the street. The city was awesome, and
wow,
dropped the turret. And then some guy ended up buying that later from me, and he turned it into a tree fort for his house, for his kids, which is amazing. But that building, all of those materials I watched later, 7 years later, go into the Caradco building. And if you're in the Caradco building and you see the lobbies, they're all flanked with this cool wood. Jeff Morton and his team came up with this great design, and all that wood is now just creating this awesome authentic energy in that building. And we almost got to a point where we sold all that stuff, but we brought it all back. It was kind of a wild west thing. I had people cleaning bricks. I was I'd see somebody walking down the street, and I'd be like, hey man, you working? You're like, no man, you got some work? I'm like, yeah dude, here's a brick hammer. I'll pay you 10 cents per brick. Just start smacking bricks, and I don't know if he was insured, we're just doing it,
The Wild West. So you use a brick hammer to clean a brick?
Yeah, you just use, a little flat-ended hammer. It's what bricklayers use, and you just smack the mortar, give it a good crack, and then usually it breaks off and the brick is still good, and you stack it on the pile, and you just made 10 cents back then. Now you get more, but yeah. But yeah, that's kind of what we did. And all those bricks went into the walls, the right above the corner of Brazen, that whole corner had to be rebuilt. And Denny Dressler and his team like would, reuse all these bricks that we had palletized and we had them wrapped in cellophane for years. And finally they got to go put them in and they had the brick because we had saved it, So that's where my passion lies, is like that
restoration and
old
deconstruction.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Like the Flex Steel building just came down, which is an absolute shame. And don't get me started on that, because that is just a crime, what happened here. And I see how it happened, so I'm not going to point any fingers, but I think Flex Steel really dropped the ball on Dubuque in how they, what they did here. It just was like disrespectful, in my opinion. However, I was able to, through my relationships with like Conlin, who's a great company, they were able to bring me in and, help. The city brought me in. We kind of did some consulting, but Flex Steel still didn't know what the hell they were doing. So I had to partner with the excavator. So back to numbers, like how do you sell somebody on something? I'm like telling the excavator, I'm like, listen, there's a lot of really great yellow pine here. And they're like, well, whatever. I'm like, they need to see something. So like I had to basically take $50,000 and show them what it looks like. I'm like, this could be yours if that makes it out alive. So you don't smash it, you don't crash it, you don't break it. Like there's a lot of techniques that you can't use because you don't want heart shatter. And I was getting too deep at that point. Their eyes rolled back. So it's just said, can you just be soft and just take it gentle and I'll take it from there.
Yeah.
And so we saved, 300,000 board feet of yellow pine. That's like just incredible antique lumber, and it's been shipped all over the country. And still I've got about 100,000 board feet sitting at a lot just north of the facility. And that's a testament to this town. This town gets it when it comes to sustainability. Our city gets it. I just did a project with them recently, and everyone at the city understands, we should save stuff when we can, and especially buildings, like historic building stock. We should try to preserve that. So I've been rambling, and I'm sorry about that.
No. It's great. It's great stuff. I mean, Cronin was on here talking about similar things. I think the people at Dubuque really love to see what's happening down there.
Yeah.
Some of the restoration of those old buildings.
Well, look at this town. I mean, when you come here, people take the Murals, for instance. Okay, that's a great one because that'll get some people activated, how dare they paint these brick buildings, Okay, let's just go erase every single mural in town and drive through the town. It's a totally different vibe, man. It's like cruddy, great buildings. Don't get me wrong. And they'd be amazing if somebody went through and just cleaned them properly and tuck pointed them properly. And it was a beautiful brick solid wall. Heck yeah. The money doesn't exist for that. It takes huge money to do the level of masonry work that needed to be done. So instead, Samuel Grew and Gene and, the team at Voices came up with this, for them, it was fun. It's let's bring some vibe to Dubuque. They have been the creative class of Dubuque and the instigators for all things creative. They're not everything, but there's a lot of really great, wonderful, creative people in this town. But they're the activists that are out there just pulling it off. And when they struck Main Street, it just ignited me. I came back into town. I wasn't even a part of it back then. I am now. I'm one of their cohorts, and I'm on the board. But I came into town. I'm like, no way. This is cool, man. All these murals had come up, and
yeah, a
very tight little crew that pulled it off. And it just changed the vibe. Coming over that bridge. I'm like, this is cool. Because I'm used to being in Bridgeport or being in, in Chicago, Logan Square, living around really fun, interesting stuff and seeing, artwork and whatnot, street art, and coming home to the bland, potato soup Dubuque. I mean, meeting, what do they call it? The sandwiches that they do here, the turkey and dressing, I think is their thing.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just, it's it just gave me a smile, to see Dubuque in that light. This is great. So I joined up with those guys and we did a huge run on it and did some more murals on Central, and that was fun. But you'll have people who say that that's defacing the buildings, and it's no, it's not. It's adding to it, just as is the warehouse district revitalization and the purest of pure, historic restorations. Those are incredible. And that's the fabric we want to preserve because it does not exist and you cannot recreate that.
Right.
So that's our integrity as a community. How do we save it? How do we save the brewery on the north end by Copper Kettle? It's just there's a lot of those questions that I have to ask, and I want to continue to drive that in whatever way I can. You know?
Yeah, and you just got a passion for it, and you love to, the next thing that needs to be restored, or, how can we make this better, or just improving anything around Dubuque I feel like that's who you are. I don't really know, I can't really speak for you, but the interactions I've had with you, it's just like, this guy wants to see Dubuque improve and get better. And it's like, dang,
I'm one of
seeps out of
I'm
your
only
pores.
fueled by the other people who do it, Like, look at the Rusk family and what they did with Charlotte's down there. Like, that's my absolute favorite place in this town. I just
great.
love it.
Yeah.
Good vibe, great people, the staff's amazing. But, like, look at what they did with that building. And then they got punched in the throat with the fire.
COVID. Or the fire.
Yeah.
And then COVID.
And then COVID.
But they,
And then they pivoted. So these are, like, people who are resilient, you know? Like, that was my mural. My only mural. I'm not really an artist. I just did some typeface, but, like,
really,
I painted resilient on one of John Gronon's buildings down. They have this, like, huge
you do
Geldwin
painting
building.
too?
I have to paint. I mean, I have my own properties, dude.
Well, yeah, but I mean, artwork type painting?
I wouldn't call it artwork. It's like, not stencils, but it was projections. And, I had a friend who's a really great actual incredible studio/mural artist, Miles Turner. Huge plug to him. He's amazing. He helped me do the whole, like, layout and make it work. And, but yeah, I created, like, a community project. I was like, resilient, like, that's the word. We, like, landed on a word that was the word. And then you can only see it when you're coming from Wisconsin to Dubuque. But if you look over your right shoulder, there's this huge, it just says resilient. And I did that because I was like, it's got to be, I think it's a 9-letter word. I had to pick a 9-letter word. And I just always thought it was, like, cool because there's boxed in, like, there's all these cinder block boxes. And I thought this would be kind of a cool thing to put a word on. So me and Sam Mulger were talking. Sam's like, dude, go for it, man. Send it. So I popped into resilient. I'm like, that word just speaks to Dubuque. It's the epitome of this town, dude.
Yeah.
Turn the lights off or whatever the saying was because John Deere had, like, a hiccup or something. Like, come on, man. Like, the 70s were tough for a minute, but the town's still here,
Yeah.
Like, we actually made it fairly well through urban revitalization, or what is it called? Urban renewal, when the United States government was giving out crap loads of money to redevelop, well, partly to put people to work, but also to redevelop the interstate system. So, like, you could tear down great buildings. So we lost some great buildings in Dubuque, the Greystone and other notable buildings downtown, because they were partly, delinquent maintenance, but partly just they had money to do it. They took down these buildings, and you had old guys like Sharky, like the OG gangster of salvage in this town. He was, like, scavenging up all the parts and hauling them off to some, wherever he hoarded his hoard of goods. And that guy's, like, been doing a service. Like, he hooked people up with stuff, but we took down some of the historic fabric that made this town what it is. Thankfully, we have enough of it that, like, it didn't really change much of what we see. We just have to continue to preserve that.
Continue.
Yeah.
Wow. And, gosh, we could go so
Sorry,
many
dude.
directions with
we
this.
don't have that much time.
And, we could probably go for hours and hours on all
I
this.
don't have to go to the bathroom, but I wanted to point out your bathroom sign, which is so awesome.
Yes, I did. I made a little bathroom sign for guests just in case they have to go to the
Especially
bathroom.
when you've got a 4-banger here. You got
I know, all the
O's.
drinks. Yeah. Occasionally got to go to the bathroom when we do some long form stuff. But yeah, I mean, you got so much good stuff going. I mean, before we get into these closing questions, what are some other messages that, that either things you're working on or ideas that you have, or, what would you like to share with our guys on the podcast?
One of the things that's cool that you partly inspired here, and it was already being talked about prior to even knowing who you were and what you had going on here, but Carl brought you up and he's like, yeah, we should talk. Have you heard of, Rob's podcast? I'm like, no. Because Carl and I had continually been talking, like meeting often and saying, dude, we got to get some conversation going just about this town and how awesome it is. And like from a young, youthful perspective, but also like going out there and grabbing like in the field kind of like interviews and just concepts of like a video cast podcast where we can kind of sit around, partly because this is fun, to just hang.
Yeah.
But also like, how can we, I guess... I'm not the Chamber of Commerce, okay? Chamber of Commerce is great. Don't take this the wrong way, Chamber. But your videos suck. You guys are awesome, but like you are constricted by what you have to do. You have to be this boilerplate, like, hey, come to Dubuque. It's this, it's that. And that's awesome. There's a need for that. But I'm not attracting you or your friends who live in the cities to this town by showing them that video. Like one video that a friend of mine did, Bobby had like funded this group called the Driftless Media Project, and a friend from high school, Jordan, did an awesome job on this really cool like video that was like a promo for Dubuque. And it was just like a completely like, let's just lob this out there, and it's just like for Dubuque. And it was awesome. The guy, Jeremy, who did the photography and the videography, he's a like savant when it comes to like editing and just like everything, the music. So I want to do more of that. I want to do more of like, very freestyle. Let's like share how cool of a community this is, because I want to attract people to this community that I want to hang out with. I want to attract people to this community that have something to give, because Dubuque has so much to give, like to anyone. So if we can at least expose some of the greatness of what we already currently get to, like, I feel like filthy rich when I wake up in the morning. Because I had appointments all over town today. In fact, I was late to my closing. You and I talked about this. I hate being late. Hate it. And then I had your time screwed up too. But my banker calls me. He's like, dude, you coming to the closing, man? I'm like, well, I guess.
Yeah.
11 o'clock. What are you talking about? He's like, it's 10 after, and it started at 11. I'm like, what? My calendar says it's at 11:30. So something goofy is going on.
Yeah.
But I was able to get to my bank to a closing that I was super late for. Super late meaning 5 or 10 minutes late, in 5 minutes from the other side of town.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, like in Chicago, like I would fight traffic for ridiculous amounts of time, and it was kind of fun because it's like when you can drive, you can like rip around people, and like I made it a game, but it's not cool when you're like late, you know?
Yeah.
So just to show people like you could come here, raise your family, have an awesome time, stand out. If you're an artist or if you're in a creative, like this is a great place. You can stand out, and it's in the Driftless region. Like when I was living in Chicago, the reason I moved back here after 5 years is like I was just feeling like so disconnected from nature, and the Mississippi like runs through the veins of my body, and when I get close to it, like after being away for a long time, it just ignites something in me. So I'm a river rat. I love being on the river. I've owned umpteen boats, and I always have access to that river, and that's where like I just feel connected.
Yeah.
So being in this town along the river, just it's awesome. So that's what I want to do. Is Carl and I are gonna we haven't really shot too much yet, but we're coming up with a concept to do similar things, because what you're doing here is amazing. Like this is really cool that you interview a lot of realtors and you're talking about real estate in the tri-states, and I think eventually people are going to start going back on these episodes and be like, oh, that's interesting. Or like Ben Potoff, like awesome information, super informative.
Yeah. And
he's like the most approachable guy you'll ever meet in your life. And actually, after I listened to that interview with him, he mentioned that book. So I downloaded it on Amazon Audible because I was driving to St. Louis for like a trailer or something. Yeah. And I listened to it, and it was a great book, great message. You know?
I remember that. I remember him feeling very passionate about that book. Yeah.
It's how you leave them feeling. Yeah. Which is like a super good concept.
Just the title has got me so intrigued.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a great idea, because Dubuque is great. Like you say, you can get anywhere in 15 minutes, and it's small enough, it's big enough, and it's going to have all the amenities that you need, and it's small enough that you can really make an impact, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Like you can, like if I waltz into Chicago, I'm not just going to make an impact in Chicago.
Here's a perfect example.
Right away.
I reached out to the city today because I just bought that building, and I'm buying the lot where the explosion happened. The bomb.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. So I've purchased those two because they actually connect. It's fantastic. So there's a lot going on there. Like you have to figure out, can I build on this? What can I build on this? What needs to be done, et cetera. I send one email to one person at the city. It turns into like 7 different people getting on a string, answering questions about zoning, historic setbacks, sidewalks, retaining walls, and like every single person. And this isn't just because I know them, but like I happen to. However, I think anyone could do this, and it's just like the response. Like our city government is top notch. In Chicago, I used to have to fight. I used to have to pay expediters to go and file a building permit a month to 2 months in advance of me even setting foot on a property because it was so hard in Cook County. Is it Crook County?
Cook County.
Crook County. Yeah.
Cook County.
To get anything done, And
Wow.
in this town, it's like, yeah, let's get you the information. Let's help you out, And we have our shortcomings as a community, clearly. But like, there are none that can't be solved. And especially if we bring in and attract more great people.
Yeah.
Love
the optimism. And the other thing is, who doesn't want to help you because you're coming from good. Like you have a good why to what you're doing. Like you want to improve the area. Like, just the $250,000 for your project, your banker is trusting in you because he knows.
Nuts. I'm going to the boat.
Jeez. I mean, he knows that you have good intentions to do great things for that property and make it better. So it's just, people want to get behind people like that, which is why I think the podcast with you and Carl is a great idea and people will support it.
By the way, Carl called me today and he's like, I sold him some flooring and some Southern Yellow Pine. And he calls me today. His guy was putting the flooring in and he's like, hey, we got a problem, dude. We're running short. And then, I go there and there's like a gap of flooring in one room, but then like half of another room done. I'm like, well, wait a second. We are running short, but like we need to take up the flooring over here and put it over there to finish that room. And then we're going to have to come up with a new solution here. So I went and problem solved with him and everybody figured it out. It was great.
Yeah.
But dude, I don't really even think Carl's I don't think he's that successful. I think I think he's just lucky because he has such an awesome team around him. I think Carl can just bobble around and like gold happens around him. He just gets to like drink coffee and hang out and do absolutely nothing and just rely on all these amazing people around him. I'm totally digging on him. I'm just kidding around. Total joke. But
he's
got a good team and he's got like the design and he's doing these places and Airbnb-ing them. So like he's creating places that people who are going to visit this community are going to just like see and be like, wow, look at this cool house we stayed in. It's right downtown on the bluff. Like he's not messing around either. No. He's like getting tax credits and doing right windows and like he's fixing properties properly, but he's also like using authentic things. And he's got a just awesome team. I met Ruth the other day and she's out digging around in my lumber yard, like getting some old beams and
That's great.
It's cool when you see people like that. Yeah. They're like just nailing it. So.
Yeah, he's got it figured out to like absolutely crush it and not make it seem like he's doing that much when really he is.
He's doing a lot, but he like actually, you kind of want to punch him when you see him because you're like, dude, what the heck, man? Like,
how are you doing this? It's crazy. Good for him though. Yeah. Good dude. I'm sure he'll listen to this. All right, closing questions. Got to fly through them.
Yep.
What's your favorite book?
Adventures of Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer, like anything Mark Twain about like adventures in the Mississippi River, like that's got to be my best favorite reads. And I'm usually like a nonfiction reader. Like I like, self-help kind of stuff and I'm a junkie for that, but I love Mark Twain's works about the Mississippi River. So
that's great. What are your hobbies?
I love to fly. I love to do wild. I'm like an adrenaline junkie, so I like.
We didn't even get into
we didn't get into
flying
paramotors. Like I get to fly all over this community. It's amazing. Not over the city, but paramotoring is incredible. My little bro Sebastian is in Michigan. He's the one that got me into this, and like he's a pilot now. He's flying at 16 years old. He's like flying his solo airplane around Chicago. I have no idea how he does it. He's cool. Boating. I don't know. I have a ton of hobbies. It could go on and on for that.
You do so much.
Woodworking and
we barely tapped the surface. You're going to have to come back on sometime.
We'll do it. Yeah, that'll be fun.
If you had to point to one thing you either learned, developed, or were just born with that makes you successful, what would that be?
My mom. 100%. She's taught me how to not be shy. I remember vividly like being in the car with her, with this woman, Lorraine, an old lady that my mom she's always friends with like cool people, but like just be outgoing, be honest, be yourself, be true to yourself, and like everything will follow. And she's just the most vibrant, loving, like smiley, like she does way too much for people. And I say that because like she doesn't always take care of herself first. Like she's the one that's putting everyone else's mask on. It's like, Ma, put your mask on first And then as the plane's going down, you can help more people, but she'll like, that's just her style. But yeah, she's, I guess, it for me. So
who is someone you're wanting to meet?
I just met him. Robrottler.
No, come on.
I don't know. I don't really have a good answer to that. Somebody I'd want to meet, like Goggins would be amazing. Like how cool would it be? But I'd be freaked out. I'd like be nervous about meeting him. He'd be like, get something done, do something, you little punk,
What the heck?
Wim Hof is honestly like on my list of people. Like if I could spend a couple hours hanging with Wim Hof, that's it. Iceman, baby. Yeah.
He's a super cool dude.
I'm putting a tank in at my house actually. Like
no
so
way.
If you ever want to use it,
Dude,
I'm gonna put
I've
an ice
thought
machine in
about
my
it.
basement.
I literally have this on my vision board. I have a vision board. It's outside my closet. It's right above my office. I literally have a little ice tank on like a bucket list or vision board for my future. And, you can go the cheap route, which I'm thinking, you can get like a deep chest freezer and you can fill it with water and like set it to 32 or whatever. Like,
oh, no way.
yeah.
I never thought about that.
So you can get like a $200 or $300. I mean, if you go use, you get
So,
$500.
like, the chest, like-
you can get a $500 deep freeze. Take everything out, put water in, set it to 32.
Do you have to line it with plastic or anything? Or no?
No.
They're watertight?
You're set.
Dude, that's what I should do. I was going to go to Tyson's because I love that place. There's
Tyson's
one
is great,
store in
too.
this town that I shop at the most. It's Tyson's.
It's
I'd
great.
rather... I love Hy-Vee, but like I'd rather just go to Tyson's for everything.
That's good. Dude, Wim Hof is great too.
Yeah, he's the man.
What are you currently focusing on, and how can the listeners help you?
Oh, wow. I don't know how listeners could help me with it, but like I'm just trying to focus on being present and being like good with where I'm at, because I will be honest, and this is going to go deep, but like I'm a human being. I deal at times with depression. Like I'll go down, I seem like, oh, happy-go-lucky, Kyle's got it made, he's doing great things, what a fun life. And like when COVID hit and like, you can't see people and it was just like constricting, like I vibe off of people. I love seeing a smile. In fact, Temwa, my friend, he works out and he was at the gym the other day, and I just like, it was like my second time to the gym, and I'm on the treadmill like trying to figure out how to not be fat because I was like feeling super like gross, and we don't have masks on because we're in the gym working out, and he walks up and he's just got this bright smile and he comes up and fist bumps me, and it just turned me alive, dude. I was like, nice, like this is so good to see somebody. And I prior to that was like feeling like garbage, like we all have our struggles, but I think that's something that a lot of people, especially recently, have been talking about. And so I think it's fair to bring that up, is like depression can be really tough, you know? And friends of mine got me taking vitamin D this winter, and I got a happy light and all that stuff. But like, I think that's where listeners could help me with that, is to start to be authentic and honest about what you're dealing with and share it with people, because that's going to help others relate and be like, oh, geez, I didn't know you had that. Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's be honest and vulnerable and like real, Dude,
that was big. That was big what you just shared. Like that's like you said, it was going deep, but it's being authentic and real, and somebody's going to hear that and it's going to help them out.
I hope so, because I mean, I've needed it myself, and if I can do that for somebody, that's great. I've had awesome mentors in my high school days, like Mrs. Nemers. Miss Rawson was her name, but Natalie Nemers. Amazing woman. She like changed my life as a kid just because I was a little hellraiser, and she like was just made me feel like I was being looked after and cared about, her and Mr. Roos. But anyway, you talk about people who impact you. Like high school is a pivotal time. So like my next door neighbor, Tim's a high school teacher. He's fantastic. And he runs kind of a program with kids that like gives them a different look, not just like school, do your homework. It's like, hey, here's life. Figure it out. I'm going to show you some cool stuff. I love mentors. I love people who act as mentors and ignite people, because it's what we need more of, not influencers. How much credibility do you have online? How many followers you got, man?
Yeah.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Come on.
What's your favorite movie?
You know, my friend Dan, he's like my best buddy. Like, he's always quoting movies, or he'll like quote the movie and be like, "What movie is it from?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know, man."
Same.
Like, I'm not that guy that like he remembers every line from every movie, and I'm like, feel so inadequate when I'm around him because I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Favorite movie: Shawshank Redemption.
Oof.
Yeah.
How can people learn more about you?
I don't know. Hang out. Let's get together. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty open on my Facebook stuff. I got off of Instagram because I was doing the stories. They're fun because you could like do fun. I just had it figured out, so I was like able to do a bunch of stuff. But then it became distracting because I'm human. Like, you want to see who saw it and what they liked, and then I tried not to do that. And then that actually, I think, was the big punch for the depression. Like, I decided after watching that movie, The Social Dilemma, I was like, I'm not going to be on this thing. This is freaking me out. So I got off of all of them. I like deleted Facebook, deleted Instagram, deleted all that stuff. And I went into like a sinking low. Like, I didn't realize it was probably from that. Like, that's a dopamine dripper, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so if you're like taking like a little hit of whatever every day, that's what you're doing. You don't even realize it, you know? So I'm back on Facebook. I'm posting stories. I'm posting stuff. I'm going to be sharing some YouTube videos on my channel about the progress of this house and renovation, and just try to like, I think Carl and I have a lot of work to do. We got to get this like video podcast thing going, and you know, you're kind of our go-to for like technical support and how to, and you know, your wife's amazing, so she's gonna have to give us some tips. But I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
so.
We'd love to help. Well, good. Hey, thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
And with that, we are out.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Real Estate in the Tri-State. We want to encourage all of our listeners to send in any and all real estate questions to us at rottlerpodcast@gmail.com. More details in our show notes.
And as always, let's have a great day, folks.